Ladies and gentlemen of the congregation, this is Pope Gravy. Please put your hands together for Pastor Baby.
You need Jesus. Go back to church. Bitch.
Welcome to the video, guys. The Seal Twist and you. We're going to be going over this pretty quick, but for the most part, we're going to be comparing the seal twisting benefits to buff threat benefits. Now, this video is going to assume that you know how to pro judge and how to seal twist, but for the spell priorities, it's going to vary on priority between single target and AoE. Single target, you're going to be seal twisting using your greater blessings, and then for AoE, things like consecrate and your seal twisting will kind of take more of that priority because your seal twist can generate AoE threat and consecrate can generate the most AoE threat among multiple targets. Greater blessings, which is going to be one of our threat generation methods, static amount of threat relative to how many players that you buff, and this threat is going to split among all targets. Our seal threat generates threats relative to the level that you've learned the skill. This will scale with Righteous Fury, and this threat will also be split amongst our targets. Now, jumping into our rotation, there's a few things that we have to go over, but the main thing is that you want to seal twist on each auto attack. If you are running Reckoning, you do want to use a stop attack macro in between your swings. That way you can build up stacks of Reckoning so you can seal twist them all together. Pro judging is always going to be a must if you can do it. This will save you mana and maintain an active seal. And then in between your swings, whenever you have filler globals, you're going to use that priority list and abilities as needed. So here I'm fighting this big guy, and as you can see, I'm just going to be seal twisting and swapping my seals every time that my weapon swing comes up. But in between doing so, I'm going to be dropping consecrate. This is where you can use your buff spamming. This is where you can use things like consecrate, things like exorcism, or other globals as they're needed, even hammer of justice if you need to do so depending on the situation. Big thing, trinkets like Zandalari Hero Charm. Seal twisting, as in just activating your seals, actually will not consume any of the charges, meaning that you can actually seal twist and kind of coast for a good while without consuming any of the charges, meaning that your judgment and potentially your consecrate, if you time it right, will not consume the charges, and you'll actually stay at a very, very high spell power level, which is something that most classes cannot do. Twist versus blessing. So this is going to be the main test that we're going into, guys. I'm going to be showing this graph on the screen here, but don't get scared by it. This is just something that someone made, which was comparing the threat of consecrate to the threat of blessing spam. So the top row here where we're pointing is the only thing that's relevant, and this is just showing how much threat we generate when we buff, depending on how many players are being affected by it. The main thing that we're comparing here is the GCD spent on using buff spam versus the GCD of seal twisting. Establishing the data. So the way that we're going to be setting up the test between these two, we're just going to be totaling the holy damage of a seal twist. We're going to be pro judging it, and then we're also going to add on the amount of seal threat, which would come from activating the seal in order to do the twist. Two sets of examples are going to be shown on screen. One is going to be completely naked, and the other is going to be with phase 3 BIS gear. For the naked test, I did use the PvP weapon. It is unenchanted, and I just use it because it has a 2.9 weapon speed, and I didn't want to skew the test too much by having a weapon that didn't have a very high base, or by using like a white weapon, which would heavily be in favor of the buff spam method. So the equation that we're going to be using is that we're going to take the total of all those numbers, we're going to multiply it by 1.9, which is our threat modifier, and then we're going to add 110. This is going to be how much threat Seal of Righteousness will generate each time. And then we're going to compare that number to how many players equivalently it would take to be buffed by greater spam to generate the same amount of threat. And the example here on the right is going to have the yellow numbers. These are going to refer to the naked example, and the red numbers that are going to refer to the geared example. All right, guys, and that's the conclusion of our test here between the naked and gear test with our buff spam. And you could see that even when we don't have any gear on, that the seal twisting method is still very, very competitive to buff spam. And this test was heavily in the favor of buff spam, as class buffs, world buffs, and consumables heavily increase our power level, as well as increase things such as critical strike chance, where our seal of command hit and our judgment can critically strike, giving us double damage if you're judging seal of command, and giving you 50% damage if you are judging seal of righteousness. I will have the talents on the screen here. Again, we have a lot of flexibility with our talents in Classic. It's a little rigid, but the big thing being that you just need seal of command, which is 11 talent points of commitment. But gameplay involving Reckoning, which has become my favorite build to play, even though the Sanctity Aura build is our most consistent, mastering Reckoning and using your stop attack and mastering your seal twist can massively increase your potency in raids, make you a lot more viable. And again, seal twisting just really rounds out and defines the paladin toolkit, which seems that will also be the case for TBC as well. So if you are watching this video for that, just know seal twisting gets better, because every time that your seal of command activates, you will get an extra strike of seal of righteousness as well. But that is my time for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, drop it down in the comments. I'll try and get to it whenever I can. But again, hopefully this helps any people that have been on the fence about what's good and when to do what, that you can get a visual example of how strong seal twisting is for your character in all content. So again, thank you guys so much for watching. Take care. Peace.